Hello, my fellow law enthusiast humans. Once again, I know I'm behind. I just didn't have a lot of chances like I normally do during work to listen to the trial, so I had to listen to them outside of work, and I have a second job, so blah, blah, blah. Let's get on with the recap for day 24. I am not a legal expert of any kind, shape, or form. I am an outside juror, an observer who is giving you a summary and recap, and I will give you links below so you can watch the trial for yourself. I once again was catching up with this with Emily D. Baker. I'm just not I'm trying to be transparent, not trying to hide anything from you. So the Commonwealth has decided to rest its case on Dr. SUVs can shoot into space. Okay, whatever. And on day 24, we get into the beginning of the defense's main case. So just so we are aware, that means that the defense is going to be asking direct examination questions, non-leading questions, and then the cross-examination is going to be done by the Commonwealth, by Mr. Brennan, more than likely, because he has had most of the witnesses. And so we start off with, we had the tech experts end on day 23. So day 24, we start with the defense tech expert, Mr. Matthew Disagara. And his name was confusing for a lot of us. But Mr. Disagara was going into his elements and, his background and all of the information. And there was also a something. So he's there to explain how the car information could be interpreted differently and what his analysis and conclusion are, which of course are going to be different from the Commonwealth's decisions. And he pointed out data that came from, he relied on Burgess and Welcher's reports. And so he had shown where Burgess had in his report noted a 3-second delay between the ignition and the starting points of some of the clocks, which were the ticks that he relied on to make the rest of his analysis. But this expert pointed out that 3-second delay was not applied in the rest of the analysis, and no reason for not including that was given by Burgess. So he was like, I don't know why he didn't do it. And then he gave this chart, which explained all the possible ways that the clocks could have aligned. Because if we talk about the clock alignment, Burgess and Welcher were pointing out the 3-point turn was the main thing, because Karen Reed, in one of the interview clips that was played in court, had said that she had made a 3-point turn at one point, and the Commonwealth really relied on that to go with the rest of their expert information. Like, they needed to explain that 3-point turn because she was trying to use it to explain why she at one point was going backwards, and they needed to try to explain where it was and how it got to that timing and how it aligned with John O'Keefe's phone data and all of that stuff. Well, we already know from Welcher's own mouth himself, he already admitted in day 23 and day 22 that he did not do all possible testing things, only the ones that supported what he was going to be testifying to, the stuff that supported the Commonwealth. He says, oh, that's not confirmation bias. Okay, sir. But anyway, the chart was given to explain all the possibilities, and that there were 9 possibilities of the clock alignments, and there were only a few applied. And so we have the 9 conclusions of the possible range. The 9 conclusions included 3 negative, not -3, 3 negative points of data, 0, and then 5 positive points of data. So 9 data points total. But only the ones that supported what the Commonwealth was going for were applied. And he said that the new data, he being Disagara, he said that the reports were aligned with Welcher's new report, and that the 3-second delay was not present in any of their reports. It was noted in one of the early reports from Burgess, but in no other points after that. And Welcher said that he was using the information from Burgess. So all of their reports were going based off of this, but then nobody included the 3-second delay and did not give an opinion again for that exclusion. It came up again and again that their reports were missing stuff, that they didn't apply things, and just how many tests were done. Only the negative tests were applied. The 3 negative data points were applied in Burgess and Welcher's analyses, whatever. And Mr. DeSagra said that there are actually more positive points and 1 neutral point that were disregarded in the reports. So it's not quite enough for me just to say, yeah, we didn't test every possible thing, and it's not going to be enough for some jurors. But when you find out just how many tests were neglected to be done by the Commonwealth experts, just how many things did not align with what they wanted to do ultimately, since they had already admitted again that they did not use any data points that didn't support what they were going to be testing for and testifying to in court. They didn't do the rest of the testing. When you find out that out of 9 possibilities, they only did 3 of them, and thus 6 were ignored, and that means that those other 6 were different or not supporting what they were doing. So more of them supported the defense and only 3 of them, the lesser, supported the Commonwealth. That's going to be a big thing, I think. All the little techie bits and bobbles, bites and all that, I don't think that's going to register to most jurors. But hearing, yeah, we didn't do all the testing, and then to find out that not only did they not do all possible testing, they didn't do the most testing. And on the testing they did do, this 3-second delay was not applied. Then we had a fairly straightforward direct examination from there, pointing out little things. Those were the major highlight points to me. Then we got into cross-examination. And Brennan, I thought at first he was making some good headway, and the witness was doing very well. Unlike Burgess and Welcher, well, actually Burgess was pretty okay. Welcher especially was very fighting and argumentative on cross-examination. This witness was not. When Brennan pointed stuff out, he was like, yeah, I can agree with that. And he was very calm and composed and didn't shy away from things that he was like, he pointed out, I'm not looking for things to support anybody. I'm just reading data points that I was given. I was told to look at these reports and then make determinations from that. That's what I did. And he did make a lot of headway, and this is going to matter to some jurors. It's going to matter to some people that Brennan emphasized with this witness that the defense tech expert did not physically mess with the car and the car's data. His experts, Burgess and Welcher, physically got with the car and experienced that data on a hardcore hands-on level. And that's going to matter, where it's like, okay, so you read some papers, they were with the car, they were with the SUV. And that's very important. However, the emphasis that they were the ones physically with the data, that they were the ones physically with the SUV, did end up coming to bite Brennan in the butt, because he started getting aggressive towards the end of cross-examination, very, very biting and attacky with an expert who really did not have it coming. He was fairly relaxed and, like I said, chill for most of the cross-examination. In fact, he didn't get riled up at all. He was just like, okay, bro. But it bit Brennan, I think, because he had said that he was trying to prove that the conclusions that DeSagra came up with were wrong if his data was wrong. If you have bad data, then you're going to get a bad conclusion. If the information you're working with is wrong, then your conclusion is also going to be wrong. And so that just opened the door for Jackson to come back on redirect, and he only asked one question. He goes, so Brennan, do you remember Mr. Brennan asking you that if your conclusions were wrong, if the data you used was wrong? Yes, I remember that. Whose data did you rely on to make your conclusions? And he said, Welcher and Burgess's. So he's over there saying that the garbage, Brennan is trying to emphasize that this expert's conclusions were wrong if his information was wrong. But his information was from the Commonwealth's experts. Okay. That ended the day in front of the jury. We ended with a voir dire on the stream, and we had Proctor's friend, hold on, let me make sure I say this right, Jonathan Diamandis. He has been a lifelong friend, elementary school, grew up with him, stayed friends with him for 30 plus years, friend who was on the text chain. I'll put an example of the text chain over here. This is the one disparaging Karen Reed, calling her the see you next Tuesday word, a whack job with her medical issues, etc. And he was there confirming that he knew all of the numbers, he recognized all the numbers, he recognized any of the names that were there, and that he was on this text chain, that he knew about it, etc. And it was allowed, the judge allowed at the end of it that he was allowed to bring in the rest of Proctor's texts. Which leads me to believe, which ended up being argued later, I heard that and I stopped and I was like, is the defense really not going to call Proctor? Because I think that's a mistake. This is my opinion. I think that is a mistake because Proctor, being the lead investigator who got fired, who the Commonwealth did not call, I think it makes them look bad either way. Them avoiding bringing him to the stand looks bad, so having the defense bring him on to the stand, I think only bolsters their case. But the only reason that they ended up giving later was that they did not want Brennan to be able to cross-examine him and be able to just blame him and clean everything up on him. Because they were, it goes against their Bowden defense that this investigation was poorly done and poorly executed. If Brennan is able to cross-examine Proctor and just dump it all on his lap and go, he's the problem. Everyone else did their job right. He's the problem. But I still think that it looks better for them. Having him read in his own text would also be better. It was very impactful the first trial. And that's where we ended on day 24, was that they're allowed to bring this guy in to bring in the things. And it's because it goes to their Bowden defense. We